This video may very well be the most difficult video that I've ever had to write. About a year ago, I worked on a Wii Hidden Gems video that took quite some time to make. I immensely enjoyed the process though, and the video did fairly well. So I determined that I would revisit the concept given that I found more games that I was excited enough to talk about. Of course, I had to be careful and make sure that these games were actually good, and stood above the rest for quality and not just be games that weren't horrible. Horrible games being something the Wii has in spades. I wanted to find games that were truly good and truly unknown. While it had seemed like the vein was totally tapped from all the other people that had covered the subject, including myself, I kept my eyes open for anything that might show up. So let me go over the rule set for this list. This was one of the most difficult parts of the writing. I established a rule set in the last video, and given some of the games I wanted to talk about, I seriously had to think about changing it up for this one. Ultimately, I concluded that I would honor the rules from the last video, but figured out a bit of a workaround for this one. This video will be a two-parter, the first consisting of 10 fun Forgotten Wii games, and the second one will be 10 yet still hidden Wii gems. I considered leaving this as one video with 20 games, but I just don't know that I would ever finish that video. But since I just hit 100 subscribers, and haven't uploaded for a year, 11 months, over 11, I haven't uploaded in 11 months, sorry everybody who subscribed in that time, sorry, thanks for subscribing anyway. I have taken my time and spent weeks really researching this and making a giant 100 subscriber special two-parter. So the games I will talk about here are all undiscussed in this camp. I will contend that these videos might contain a game that you've heard someone talk about, but I did my best to only go for games that I haven't seen shown off on YouTube by anyone major. This took a ridiculous amount of work, and I will say that I enjoyed it a lot, but it took a couple of months of research getting and playing the games, especially between doing school. I don't want to confuse anybody, so I'm going to quickly lay out the rules for this video list. Now for the first video, multi-platform games are allowed. Does this mean that I'll be taking every single multi-platform game for the Wii that is good? No, not at all. Just the ones that I've had run-ins with personally. In the future, I would like to do a video tackling that subject specifically, but for now, just a handful. This first list also doesn't say these games are hidden gems exactly, just games that I feel have fallen under the radar in recent years that are still good fun. Or good, but very flawed. For the sake of my sanity, the games on these lists will be in no particular order. Am I also saying that you'll agree with me? No, you might, but I mean, these games might be rare or unknown for me, might not be for you, and vice versa. I don't know for sure if you know these games or not, but I've done my best to show off some good games here, and I just hope that you get something out of it, and maybe even find a new favorite game. During the production of this video, which has been going on since before summer, somebody recently released a video talking about a couple of the games I had ready to go, like they were already written up, I had recorded everything, just had to be put in the video when the video was released, but here we are. It's really a big bummer. These were some of the games that I was most excited to talk about out of them all. Finding them is even part of what encouraged me to make this video to begin with. Unfortunately, now I have to work with what I've got. So I decided to cut those games and probably just give them full reviews at some point using the content I made around them as a basis. I still did my best to give you some quality true hidden gems that speak to the Wii platform. I lucked out and found new games to replace the ones missing, and I think they're still hidden gems. X-Men Origins Wolverine. So if you're going to make this game go up against the Uncaged Edition, you're going to pick the Uncaged Edition. Sure, it's a really fun, over-the-top game that's ridiculous, but don't discredit the Wii and PS2 versions for that reason alone. If you take the game by itself, you have a very fun hack-and-slash beat-em-up game for the Wii starring Wolverine. You make your way through levels and learn new moves and combos to even more effectively dispatch your foes. Some classic Wolverine-style combat that is just simply fun for most of the runtime of the game. It also looks pretty decent on both the Wii and PS2. It's a pretty grungy looking game with mostly gray and brown, but the texture work and models are both very passable. Although some of the environments clearly cut off in the background of the level to make you feel like you are on an isolated island rather than a full world, I honestly think it's a very fun game. There are times that some of the combat gets a bit tedious and feels a little bit repetitive, and that kinda keeps me from ranking it as one of the best games. It also has virtually no unlockables despite having two different kinds of secret collectibles hidden throughout the levels. Sentinel Overseers, which you must destroy by using Wolverine's feral senses to find them and give them a hearty smack, and tokens to refight the Blob. I don't really understand why you find tokens that just allow another round at a boss fight you've already beaten. I think the idea is to grind experience, but the game isn't hard enough typically to justify it. Motion controls are fairly inoffensive and mostly used for special moves and lunging. When traversing an area using a lunge, you have to flick the Wii remote in the corresponding direction. In some instances, failure can lead to death, but just as often, it can just make you fall. It's a fun game that is far from perfect, but a respectable showing for the Wii and consequently, the PS2.
What's that? Where's that coming from?
Bionicle Heroes. Another cross-platform game for the Wii and PS2, this game offers a lot of fun, and Traveler's Tales will always impress us with the amount of things it can smoothly fit on screen. But that doesn't make the game. Originally envisioned to be a kid-friendly FPS, the game was reworked into a third-person shooter amidst concerns that even though there was clearly not real violence in the game, and it was an obviously cartoony concept, the game would receive an M rating simply by virtue of being an FPS. This resulted in the team backpedaling a little and going third-person, which got them all the way down from an M to an E10+ rating. The content was basically the same, except it wasn't an FPS anymore. Crazy. If you want to find out more about this game, you can check out the TT Founders channel here. Personally, I would have adored this game as an FPS. I think that's a phenomenal idea. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Whatever the case, we still get a really solid, pretty fun game here. It follows the structure of a typical TT LEGO game pretty closely. All of it will feel familiar, except that it is in co-op. Instead of switching guns, you actually switch masks and change Toa, each one having their own weapon of the standard set. A machine gun, a sniper, a missile launcher, a shotgun, an explosive similar to a grenade, a ray gun, etc. It's fun to strategically swap through them and find the best one for a fight, and use them to navigate the environment with their special Toa abilities. You basically get new weapons and lives by picking up the Toa masks in the level. The controls for the Wii version will definitely not be what you're expecting. Instead of controlling the reticle of fire like in an FPS for Wii, you control the camera. The reticle moves alongside the screen space, so you get help landing shots because the system feels really weird. Thankfully, it's pretty easy to get used to, and it also feels like a pretty decent replication of another control stick, when you get it down right at least. There's a lot of unlocks, and lots of fun to be had in this game. While I wouldn't say it's perfect, I really enjoyed my time with it. Like all the TT games, it can be pretty addictive to unlock everything. Bakugan Defenders of the Core. This game is just one that I got a gut feeling about. I saw a tiny bit of gameplay and was pretty much sold right away. It just looked like fun. It came out on the 360, the PS3, and the DS, and yes, the Wii. It plays great and has a pretty simple but fun combat system. It actually has a pretty fun story mode that lets you make your own original Bakugan character that looks just like you. He looks just like me, his nose is huge, he has just a massive nose, and his nose is really big. It also lets you give him a big nose, which is perfect for me. You can also pick out an outfit. The character customizer is actually fairly detailed, especially for a game like this. You have faster hits and stronger hits. Although they don't really make special combos and crossover between them, they're appropriate for different situations. The fighting lets you choose from different Bakugan and take on opponents and up to 4-player battles. I'm not really familiar with the show at all, but I did have a good friend who really enjoyed it when it came out in America. Honestly, if the game is anything to go by, I might have been missing out. You get to explore areas in an overworld type situation, and this typically lends itself to becoming stealth segments, in which you can throw the sentient little Bakugan at nearby cans and the like to distract the guards with the noise. The Bakugan just rolls back to you on its own. I hope. Honestly, the combat is fun, engaging, and the graphics are pretty great, and the story is interesting and a pretty good time. For a tie-in game like this, I had no expectations for it, but if I had any in the moderate range, it would have surpassed them handily. As far as I can tell, there's practically no difference between the Wii version and the PS3/360 version, other than the standard definition. The game looks good and plays good. It is worth checking out for the Wii or any system you happen to have. Also, when writing this section, I honestly just thought that they weren't around anymore, like they had passed on. At the store, though, I came to find that I was wrong. So that's pretty crazy. I thought these things actually stopped eventually, but seeing as Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Bakugan are all still around, apparently they never go away if they gain any momentum. Jurassic the Hunted. So this game is an interesting little tidbit for a few reasons, but first I'll focus on the main aspects of it and then come back to some of the weirdness around it. This game is fun, and it is fun to work your way through the forest and have dinosaurs randomly jump out at you. You collect different weapons and have to figure out which is the best for what situation, usually machine guns. You encounter cool set pieces like a destroyed ship on land, and you try to figure out why you're on this weird island and try to find your friends so you can all escape. There's also a fun mechanic called adrenaline, which lets you very briefly slow down time and get a closer look at the vitals of the dinosaurs so you can try to place better shots. Kinda cool. I thought this game was surprisingly enjoyable. Throughout the story, you have segments of the game that are literally just Call of Duty Zombie mode, but just sprinkled throughout the levels. You get to fix up the barricades and everything. It feels so similar by design. One of the issues with this game is that it offers very little in the way of other content. You get the main mode and that's all she wrote. I wish they had taken a little more time to grab a few of these areas and just let them be another game mode. Basically just a dino zombie mode. Unfortunately, it was not to be. I understand that this was a multi-platform game and they had to get the Wii and PS2 versions out at the same time as the PS3 and 360 versions, but a little more time to be polished and optimized could have really helped make this game something special. The biggest issue is the frame rate. It is bad. It's pretty consistently bad. So at least it isn't getting spontaneously worse or freezing, but it is a mess. The thing is this game's a pretty fun little experience. There really could have been something quite special here if they just would have dialed back the foliage a little more from the HD counterparts. It just isn't optimized for the system, which is a shame because it would definitely get a high recommendation for me as a fun little Wii experience. Like I said, maybe if it had 2 more years in the oven, this port would be really fun. Top Shot Dinosaur Hunter. Weirdly similar looking game, right? Well, this was one of the things that had me questioning what it meant to even be a Wii game. This game is technically a Wii exclusive, not released on any other system, so it actually could, by that rule set, qualify as a true Wii hidden gem. One of the handful of factors that was hurting Jurassic the Hunted was actually just that, not an exclusive. So what makes this game different from Jurassic the Hunted? Well, they repackaged the same game. No, like, for real, this game is literally Jurassic the Hunted. Look, it's the same. The only difference is the heads-up display. Other than that, it's the same. Well, not technically. The game is really weird. It's actually, basically, as far as I understand it, a game that recycles the assets of the Wii version of Jurassic the Hunted and makes it into a Top Shot hunting game. Yeah, for real. This was all very confusing to learn. The Wii has a surprising pedigree of dinosaur hunting games, so it would be easy to never realize this, assuming you had not purchased both. I guess they figured since they were recycling virtually everything to make this new hunting game, they might as well just include the main game yet again. So by getting this version, you just get the same game with more modes. Actually, this game did get 2 more years in the oven essentially. Maybe that was the time of polish it needed. For example, they actually added in the mode I requested. You have a map for a survival mode now, based off of the Call of Duty Zombies. A great feature that seems like a no-brainer. Really very cool. So this is the same game with 2 new modes. Fine, I guess, but now that I had some time, they must have refined the engine so that it runs better on the Wii, right? I mean, it came out 2 years later. It would be really weird if they didn't do anything at all. I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure that they did nothing at all. This was a chance to redeem the game. Who even releases a game twice anyway? That doesn't even make any sense. I don't know if I can believe they actually didn't even remotely touch the engine to try and optimize it more. It might actually run slightly better, but that might just be wishful thinking on my part. I don't know. Since the game is the same game but with more features, this is the version that I recommend. Is it the best game on the Wii or anything? Oh heavens, no. But I happen to think it's pretty fun. Skate It. This is a bit tricky, because I'm not very familiar with the other skate games. I'm aware that it is more of a realistic take on the concept of a skateboarding game, and the idea seems to be that it is more hands-on and skill-based. With that being said, Skate It for the Wii is a pretty fun game. I never heard of it spoken about at all. Maybe it sucks horribly compared to the other 3 main skate games, but I never played them, so I don't know. I assume they control great and feel good and consistent. This game kinda does. Naturally, instead of using the second stick to perform tricks and maneuvers, you use the Wii Remote's motion sensing. Does it work? Yeah, well, enough. Sometimes it's hard to get it to do exactly what you're trying to do, but it usually just feels like I just don't know how to do it right. It's a fun little game with a story that is a spin-off of the original games. On top of that, of course, you get to make your character. Naturally, since I'm a powerful online influencer and this video will definitely get more views than 10, I made my character an 80s PSA on safety when skateboarding. I could always get the game to do what I wanted if I was doing it right. There is a lot to remember though, and it can feel a little overwhelming. I've heard the game's visual style is a total bust and that it looks very unpleasant. I highly disagree with that. For a Wii game, it does exactly what it should. It goes for a more realistic style like Skate, but dials it in being cartoony like a Wii game should. It all looks pretty good to me. It plays well, it has a long story mode, and it's a good time all around with some fun and weird mechanics, like the My Spot feature that lets you put objects in different areas. Weird, but okay. I enjoyed my time with this game, and all 3 control styles, but some more than others. This isn't the only skating game that we'll be talking about in this video though. We actually have another little interesting piece coming up later. Worms Battle Islands. So this might seem like a weird thing to throw on the list. If you like Worms, it's usually pretty consistent on each console. Well, I include it here because I didn't know that this game had ever even come out for Wii. I find it kind of interesting, and even more so, that it's actually the second Worms game for the system. The first game, A Space Oddity, is also a unique and interesting beast. I haven't played it, but from my understanding, it's pretty different in controls and execution. I've heard some somewhat negative things and some positive things about it. But hey, Battle Islands is just classic Worms goodness, but on the Wii. You can't go too wrong with that. I will say that the series is not changing too much anymore, but that's kind of okay for games like this. I'm just glad it got a pretty quality release for the Wii. A game I just assumed would never be on the Wii actually has 2 titles, which to me is kind of crazy. I can personally say Battle Islands is fun, and a space oddity seems appropriately named. They are mostly on this list to draw attention to them. If you like Worms, it's on the Wii. Skate City Heroes. This is one of the games that kicked off the creation of this video. It's also one of the games that made me question what it means to be a Wii game. It is a Wii exclusive title, as in it's the only game that has the title. This game is not unlike Top Shot Dinosaur Hunter. It has a confusing and convoluted history. I played through almost the entire game and felt pretty happy with putting it on the list as a Wii hidden gem, and looking to see if Skate City Heroes was on any other console seemed to yield that it was not. When trying to find out a little bit more about the game, I searched around on Wikipedia and came up with nothing at all. It seems it didn't exist. It was published by Zoo, which is a company I don't associate with quality, but I had a lot of fun with the game, so I was confused. I couldn't seem to find anything on the developer either. I looked it up on YouTube with a few different terms, a few times, and found very little information on it. Eventually, when searching online, I came across a game that had a PAL-only PS2 release called Skate Attack. Looking up the gameplay revealed to me that it was indeed the same exact game. That's a little bit weird, but the publisher was totally different, which kind of confirmed my suspicion about Zoo's involvement in the game. It seemed like they couldn't actually help produce something decent. Then on YouTube yet again, I found out that the game had been released in the PSP under yet a third name, which is Skate Park City. So, more confused than before, I poked around to see if there really wasn't any information about the game. All 3 versions of the game have no Wikipedia page or wiki page with any information at all. And the developer Zero Scale, which is credited for all 3 versions, has no information I could find at all on it either. In my YouTube searching, I found that there was a video uploaded by Funbox Media to YouTube. This claimed that the game was theirs. This is a whole new name, so I didn't even know what was going on anymore. But the original publisher, Midas Interactive, seemingly only published games in the PAL territory, so it made sense that Zero Scale would have needed a new publisher to take it to the North American region. Zoo just picked up an old game that already existed and put it out again. Funbox Media, by the way, is just the name that Zoo changed to. From my understanding, this is what the company is called right now. All this to say, I opted not to include it on the Hidden Gems list, but it drove my decision to make 2 separate lists. Now that that's out of the way, I think I'll talk about the game. It's fun. It has a fun style, it is obviously reminiscent of Jet Set Radio, and fun gameplay that is consistent, even despite using a Wii Remote for control. It has fun mechanics and fun environments that help mix up the gameplay. While playing through, I was always curious to see what environment I would come across next. I wanted to see what the game would throw at me. You have side objectives throughout any given level, and you do them by meeting certain achievements, like collecting 100 coins that only certain robots drop. Oh yeah, there's also combat, which may seem like a horrible idea for a skating game, but it actually feels a lot like Sonic, and then you kinda have a homing attack. As you go, you unlock new moves and abilities to help you beat the main mission objectives scattered around, and you unlock new characters with unique stats that may be better for some objectives than others. You get a grappling hook in the very first level that lets you save yourself from falling off and hurting yourself. Some of the controls can be really hard to get the hang of, like the controls for drones flying over the areas, but they're all completely beatable. This game is very far from perfect. I mean, the frame rate can be pretty rough, but for what it is a lot of fun. It definitely is an underrated game, and at least for that reason, I thought I would share it with you. I enjoyed it enough to beat the game, and go for a large amount of the collectibles and special unlockable characters. The outfits of the 2 main characters appear to be different in Skate Attack, but moreover, the unlockable characters are all completely different from this one. My favorite character to play wasn't even in the original version. I think they also took a multiplayer-only stage and made it into a full stage. I'm not really sure. I like the game. I think we were lucky to have it come up to America, and it's a super cheap pickup. There's nothing really to lose. Astro Boy. As it were, I would think that this game would suck, and maybe it does, but I don't really think that. It is developed by High Voltage, and if you know me, you know that I like High Voltage. Well, usually. A few things to say about this before I dig in too much. This is a movie license game, and it both feels like it and doesn't at the same time. Feels like it is in that it is an unpolished and a little bit janky and relatively short game, but not in that it feels like the developers cared and put the maximum amount of time and care into it that they were allotted and made a real effort. Just because this team has developed some good stuff doesn't mean everything they make is good, but this is a game that deserves a little more love. If they had been given 1 or 2 more months to make the game, I think that it would have been brilliant. But as it stands, it is really fun and enjoyable, and although unpolished, a fun, side-scrolling beat-em-up for the Wii, PS2, PSP, and DS. I don't have any idea about the DS game, to be honest. Playing the game on the second hardest difficulty is what I recommend. The hardest difficulty is honestly just ridiculous. You're gonna get hit at least once in that mode, and it's pretty much an instant kill. The normal hard mode is hard enough to still be fun, but not infuriating. I do think there is something to be said for how fun the game feels to actually play. You would think being unpolished would hurt the game feel a lot, but honestly it still just feels great to fly around. The game has fun fighting mechanics and a cool level up system. You find upgrades hidden throughout the environment you're going through, and you upgrade your laser attack, your combat strength, and your flight, which determines how many times you can boost in any direction while still in the air. And you can upgrade your health as well. Different enemies are color-coded to denote how they fight. Red are totally aggro and take no recoil from your attacks. Blue tend to lean more into projectiles, I believe. It's a cute and simple little system, but a very fun game that has a decent chunk of extras. That includes cheat codes. Sengoku Basara. This game probably could have made it onto the main list if it weren't also on PS3. Here's the deal though. If you like Dynasty Warriors, you're gonna love this. Dynasty Warriors is over the top and crazy, and that's part of what makes it so fun. Well, this game is even more so. It even goes further by including amazing voice acting that always makes me very happy.
Here I am, the Tiger Samurai! Rivals beware!
It's hilarious and silly and not afraid to focus on being fun above all else. The characters also have crazy weapons and combos, and they're all fun to play. It's just the classic Dynasty Warriors game, but in my opinion, a pretty decent amount better. Mowing down enemies makes even more sense in a completely over-the-top interpretation. I just recommend this game, probably to an even larger audience than I would recommend Dynasty Warriors, really. I mean, it would likely appeal to more people just because of its humor. It leaves a good impression, runs well, and is a ton of fun to play. Guilty Gear Cross Accent Core. Here's the deal. This is probably one of the most well-known games on this list. I mean, it's not the biggest franchise of all time, but people know it pretty well. Incidentally, I don't ever see anyone talk about this game. It's fun. If you like fighting games and you get a classic controller, you can't really go wrong with either version of Accent Core. The special version, of course, is exceptionally rare, but if you see it on the cheap, snap up a copy. I've had a ton of fun with this game, and I'll say the normal version is pretty cheap too, even if the special edition is very expensive. Now this is a fighting game much more for core fighting game fans, not casual really. It's an incredibly technical game that is highly precise. If you like BlazBlue, you'll probably like this. I mean, it's the same company. It's a good time, but it's definitely not my all-around favorite fighting game on the system.